Welcome to the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals New and Improved podcast series featuring great discussions, insight, and resources on all things related to education and administration.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the MASSP podcast. My name is Ryan Cayce, and I'm excited to be joined again from last season, my old partner in crime, Theresa Stager, who comes to us as the AP from Saline High School in Ann Arbor. So, Theresa, how's it going?
It's going great. Everything's going great. There's really nothing else I can say. I'm excited to be back. I'm excited for what we've got coming in this next season of the podcast. And I'm excited to be back with you, Ryan. How's it going?
It's going well, and I'm just happy knowing that the true podcast guru is back to do this work because you are much better at it than I. So we got season 3 kicked off. We are about 3 or 4 episodes in. And today we are going to be talking about supports for new administrators. We know it's that halfway point in the year for every new administrator. They survived. They made it to Christmas break. Now they have the second half of the year to look forward to, and it becomes a even busier time of the year. So I'm really excited that we have a special guest, one of my colleagues at MASSP. Steve Seward is with us today. Steve, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me, and look forward to chatting it up with you about how to support new administrators.
And for people who don't know Steve, he is one of the associate directors. You've probably seen him presenting somewhere at one of our conferences. He's out in the field all the time, so I don't get to see Steve too often, only when we're connecting maybe virtually like this. So glad to have him joining us because he has a lot of experience, and I'll let him kind of talk about that in a little bit, working with all sorts of administrators, especially new ones. And I just want to find out from Steve really today, talking with Theresa, what is available for new administrators? What should veteran people or people who are working in the districts that are hiring these new administrators be doing to help support them? We know it's a very difficult job, a very important job, very rewarding job, but we want to keep these people supported. We want to keep them doing the hard work. We don't want them leaving. Just like with teachers and trying to support teachers, it's just as important for principals. So I'm excited to have Theresa and I throw some questions at you, Steve, for everybody that's listening, and hopefully you can give some really awesome advice as to what not only the new administrators can do, but the people who are supposed to be supporting them, what they can do the second half of the school year. Sound good?
Sounds good. I will try my best.
I think part of while we're talking about new administrators, though, is also supporting those administrators who may not be new to administration, but new to the roles that they're in. And I think that's a kind of a lost group that we don't think about as much because we think that when an administrator comes into a role and they've already been an administrator, they really should know what's going on and what they're doing. But being in sometimes a new level, sometimes a new district, sometimes a new role in general, we have to think about what those administrators need as well. Over the Christmas break, I feel like I've had a lot of administrators reach out, or even on the Facebook groups, things like that, and just talking about what kind of mentoring, where they can get mentoring, what they're looking for, and a lot of them too with teamwork in their own districts, working with people. Maybe they've come into a new district and they're working with people that have already been there. How to make that, how to make that move. So there's a lot to this new admin idea. So let's just start from the beginning. Steve, based on your experience, what's the greatest need for the group of new administrators?
Yeah, when I think about new administrators, like you were saying, Theresa, it might just be new to a district or even new to a building within the same district. So it takes on different perspectives. But I think the biggest thing to be mindful of is, as an administrator, you're not alone, and to seek out the supports of others, whether they're people in your own building, whether it's an online format, whether it's seeking a mentor from an organization, whatever that might be, that you're not alone, and really seek out the support of others and leave your ego at the door. When I think about what I'm noticing about strong leaders, it's lead with integrity. Know what you want your destiny to be, and then lead with integrity around that. Be ready to have some courageous conversations. And what I'm noticing is a lot of people, especially new people, are afraid to have some tough conversations that need to be had. And if we have those tough conversations, actually people typically seem to respect you even more in the long term. So instead of letting things fester, how do you have that open conversation, not in a judgmental way, but courageous conversations to figure out where to go with your common vision. The other one that I know notice a lot around is the adult culture, and how are new administrators or even current administrators that have been in buildings for a long time fostering that adult culture through their intentional interactions and not really a strengths-based approach to leading versus a judgmental or a fixing approach. So figuring out where teachers are or where students are, and then celebrating it and just figuring out where to move forward with them based on where they want to grow. So less judgment and more support.
I love the idea of leaving the ego at the door. I think it's really, there's a lot to be said for new administrators coming in, being excited about the position, being excited about starting something new, and then something too to be said about those administrators that are maybe changing levels or changing buildings. There is a lot of ego in, and not necessarily in a bad way, but in going into a position and also being a part of a position where new people are coming in and remembering that we're all there for the same goal. And those tough conversations are really important, because a lot of times you're going to have to sit down with someone on a team that you're in or someone in the district that you're in and just say, this, I maybe don't feel like this is working really well. Tell me, help me understand why we're not merging or we're not melding or whatever it is. And those tough conversations can be really difficult, but I think for those that have trouble with them, I know I struggle with tough conversations in some ways as well. And just, remembering, just like you said, Steve, that they will look at you as a stronger person and as a stronger leader for being able to have those conversations, and it'll make things better in the end too.
And I think that they know those are, I like how you use the phrase courageous conversations. They know, because it takes a lot of courage to have some of those hard conversations. And I think the other staff, teachers, other administrators, parents, students, whoever you're having them with, they know it's difficult too. So if you can at least do it, like you said, Steve, with integrity, at the end of the day, whether they don't like the words that are necessarily coming out of your mouth, they don't agree with the stance you're taking or the opinion you're making. If you're doing it with integrity, knowing that it's a difficult thing to do, I think they will still respect you for it. At least that's what I found in my experience.
Yeah, it reminds me of a title doesn't define you as a leader. The ways you behave and how your words and your actions are aligned define you as a leader. So just being named a principal doesn't give you any different right to treat anybody different. Everybody loves to be led and loves to lead. So how do you work as a partnership with those around you to make that happen?
Absolutely.
So going back, as we come back from the break, it'll be halfway through the school year, just about, as Ryan was mentioning earlier. What are some things we need to be thinking about beyond the traditional calendar events? We know we've got spring testing coming up. We know if you're at the high school level, you're working toward graduation, where, it's downhill from here, but quickly, a big snowball right at the top, and we are going down. Mm-hmm. What else do we need to be thinking about?
Yeah, some big ideas that come instantly to mind are the adult culture, because our adult culture truly influences the student culture and the community culture. So pay attention to the adult culture. And if you notice the adult culture is tense, what are the strategies or mechanisms you can put in place to ensure that adult culture feels safe and secure and efficacious in their craft, so they want to continue with the journey? The other one that comes to mind is really just building a culture of open communication. A lot of people say that they have open communication, but if people aren't safe and it's not comfortable, it really makes an environment in which people are afraid to take risks. And some of that has to do with the new observation and evaluation tools. But really, if we look at that as a growth tool instead of a gotcha tool, it really creates a system we're all learning from each other to work out how to make that happen. I also see with some things that an administrator might do, and one of the things that I had done in a previous career is create more of a conferring list of all of the staff members, and think about who are you going to chat with on a daily basis, either with before school, after school, during school, to make sure that you're touching base, because there's something about being visible, especially when coming back from break, so that you can reset the culture and then encourage the culture. Another one that comes to mind instantly is knowing that administrators are in and out of classrooms on a continuous basis, whether it's to observe for observation and evaluation or whether it's just to stop by to see a student, is what are the patterns that are being noticed within classroom instruction and behavior? And then how do you use those patterns to reteach around during your staff meetings? Or how do you use those patterns to figure out what are your next school improvement needs, and how do you bring those to the forefront with your administrative team and or your leadership teams that you have? But I guess it all boils down to how do you grow that collaborative culture of gratitude. So even leaving people, I think back to an administrator that I worked with very closely, and she just simply left smiley faces on sticky notes and placed them on people's computers and turned them on for people. Or left people notes of gratitude, just saying, thanks for being here for our students and what you do on a daily basis. Just creating those environments in which you feel like you want to be there, and then people show up and they're willing to put in the extra time and the extra motivation because they know that you've got their back and they have your back.
You know, Steve, you touched on, there was a lot in what you just shared there. And so all of it just wonderful. But I think we talk a lot about culture, and we talk a lot about celebrating our staff, about taking note of the culture. But for new administrators, what would you give new administrators as a suggestion in maybe that the culture is not in the right place? Like, we talk about fixing it, but we don't necessarily talk about maybe what might be going on that is a red flag in school culture. Can you give some things that you've seen, some examples of what that might look like? Or Ryan, you too?
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan, and then I'll jump in.
Jumped off script. Sorry, guys.
No,
what was important for me to find out is I would assume that this is a pretty popular practice, is I had a leadership team that would change every couple of years of different teachers, that all sorts of subject areas and experience levels. It wasn't just all the 30-year vets or anything like that. And this is a leadership group that we built a lot of trust together. And so that they would actually bring me, concerns and issues, just so I could at least try and do my best to address it, and they could help me even strategize how to do that. So especially if there's just things going on in the air that you might not pick up on because you assumed your opinion is, I handled it, I solved it, it's good. You might find out 2 weeks later you didn't handle it that well, or it's still a problem. Now it's getting even worse because you didn't address it the right way. So just hopefully having some sort of trusted confidence that are willing to share with you and give you, those conversations that you have to hear without there being any, negative impact from that, knowing that you're going to take that advice or those concerns seriously. So that was really, really helpful for me. And I would ask for it too. I didn't pretend like I didn't want to hear bad things. I would ask them, hey, what concerns are there going on right now in your department? What concerns are there going on in your wing of the building? What are there any problems? I would follow up on maybe difficult decisions that were made. I know I told the science department this. How's that going over still right now? Is it still, are people still frustrated? And at least knowing that I'm asking for it, trying to find out if there's concerns or people are struggling. I think they appreciated that. It was never just, I took care of it, it's done, everyone's moving on. I would actually try and take the time to find out, was it truly solved? Was it truly addressed? And so that was one thing that was helpful to me, just having a team of people that I met with regularly, that leadership team that would help bring me those, or would help go find out if I asked them questions for feedback.
So it sounds like inquiry and reciprocal accountability.
I didn't have fancy names for it like Steve did, but I what Steve said is what I meant to say. In 5 seconds is what I meant to say instead of the minute I did.
You know what makes me think of too when you say that, Ryan, is the idea that when people come to talk to you, it's an open door policy, but we don't want to hear people's names. We want to hear patterns across the school that are going on that we can address. Mm-hmm. So it's not about one person, it's patterns across the system so that we can work together to resolve it or celebrate it.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. What about administrators training new principals? What should they be doing or offering, and what options are available for them on how to approach this?
Administrators who are training new principals, I think that those folks need to remember that their experience is their experience, their journey is their journey, and the person that they're mentoring or training it's that person's journey. So are they more of a guide on the side versus a consultant all times? So how are they balancing when to question, when to paraphrase, when to ask for input versus always being the problem solver or the answer retrieval for people as they move forward? Because ultimately what we want to do is set the stage for people to take over our institutions so that we can sit back a little bit and it becomes more collaborative. But if we're always reaching out for somebody and they give us the answers, we're going to keep going to them for the answers. I think the other thing is the relationship that you can have between the two of you or between a principal and somebody else working is really just looking at what are the measurable improvements that you can make together around culture or student outcomes or whatever it might be, and then make sure that you have the time to sit down and reflect on those and plan forward. MASSP does have trained mentors. So if there are new principals that would like some support, we've got, I believe, probably 18 to 20 certified mentors, and they are all people from throughout the states from various levels from pre-K to 12th grade, as well as people from central office experience. So those people are out there too that are confidential mentors outside of a system that can give you non-biased thoughts around how to move forward with your goals.
And how would we, if a new administrator or a new principal were looking to receive that kind of guidance, how would they reach out?
Yeah, the first thing that they could do is give me a call or shoot me an email. My number is 616-443-2331. Or my email is steve@michiganprincipals.org. And we can talk about what your needs are, what your goals are, and figure out a plan of who might meet your needs. So what I would typically do is give you a list of 2 or 3 people that are in your area. And then from those people, give you their bios, and then you can set up a conversation with them to figure out who's going to work best for you. Or we can do that behind the scenes. So it's just really figuring out what your goals are and setting you up with somebody that you feel most secure with that you can figure out where your goals are and move forward with them with.
I think that's such a cool program, and I'm wishing that I would have had that in place when I was an administrator. I always felt like I was really fortunate when I did the path of becoming an assistant principal first and then a principal after that. And so the principal that hired me to be his AP was an excellent mentor, was always willing to show me things, bring me in on conversations that were beyond my scope, so to speak, and my role as a AP, always willing to show me, hey, this is how we schedule. Hey, sit in on this conversation. I want you to see how I have this conversation with a parent or with a teacher, or you want to see how to write a policy for a book, and so I had that experience. It was awesome. But what was interesting is when I moved up from AP to principal, I had to hire an assistant principal. And what I didn't expect was not only am I worrying about my own role that I felt like I was pretty well prepared for, but I'm still a new principal building leader in charge of my entire building. And at the same time, I'm now supposed to be training an assistant principal. And that's where I felt like I struggled a little bit, because you want to give the time to show them things, but at the same time, I didn't necessarily have the confidence, that maybe I should have. So it would have been awesome to have somebody, like you mentioned, maybe even somebody outside the district that I could have lined up for her, the assistant principal that I hired, to help make sure that she was getting all of the support she needed. I thought it worked out well. She did a wonderful job, and she's very good at what she does. But I know I could have done a better job in my role of trying to support her. And that was just something that, knowing that we have this program going on, I just going, man, what a missed opportunity for me 5 years ago to be able to use something like that.
Right.
I think it's really just that confidential guide on the side.
Yep.
To offer different perspectives. I'm sorry, Theresa, I overspoke you.
No, you're fine. No, you're right. We had we have a leadership coach that we talked to as well in our first year of administration in the district. And it is invaluable to have someone who is, like you said, that guide on the side, but is kind of a secondary voice, someone who can give you that non-biased information and non-biased suggestions and ideas for moving forward. It's really, really, really helpful. And I wish more people knew that we had this available, and hopefully now they will.
I think what we need to also understand as a culture of educators is coaching and mentoring is for everybody, regardless of the number of years that you've been into it. It's not for the people who struggle. It's really, if we want to grow in our craft, we know all sports players have coaches. Our musicians have coaches. Many business professionals have coaches. So why are we not allowing ourselves that same privilege as educators in the profession that we're in?
So obviously we've been talking about supports for new administrators, and this makes complete sense in terms of a support strategy that can be used for them, but really any administrator, any teacher, any principal would find value in getting some sort of coach.
I believe so. I have 2 coaches myself. One that helps me stay on target with my goals, and the other one that just helps me think outside of the box.
And that's why Steve is so good at what he does. Dang it.
That's why he's got those fancy words, Ryan.
I know. Right? Jeez.
It's all learning from each other.
That's right. Oh no. So that's wonderful. There's so much information, all of this. And MASSP has so many supports that I think we just they aren't out there enough. And that's just one of them. So now looking forward, what kind of PD is available for more of these admin? We've talked about some mentoring and coaching, but what else is there?
Well, I think within a district, the joy of working with MASSP is things can be designed around what your district needs are or your individual needs. But when you're in a district, I think we need to rely on the people sometimes that are in there that we can pull from, or people that are in our county. Regardless of their title, I think of some of the people that I still keep in contact with most that challenge my thinking, and they're teachers of various grade levels because they're current in the system. So they've got the current research, the current language, and they can really challenge. So I encourage administrators just to stay in touch with the teaching folks, because those are the core of the work. The other one I often think of is, who are those like-minded friends in your area or online that you can connect with? Because we've all got those people that once we just meet, we're like, wow, like you're somebody that can challenge me, I can be vulnerable with, but they're just your like-minded friends. And how do you build a cohort of those people within your area or within your district that you can just start to problem resolve with?
I think that is a huge point right there. And it's no matter how you find them, whether you find them at conferences, I know at the MASSP, for example, when you go up there and you meet people, I know I've met some of the people that I really talk to and communicate with the most through Twitter, but also there are people who are very close to us. Oh my goodness, distance wise, that's the word I was looking for. But it really is important to have that person who you can be vulnerable with. And that's an important part of what you just said that I think needs to be heard, is that if you're not going to get out of coaching or out of any of this networking or any of the mentoring, if you can't be vulnerable, it isn't going to work for you. You're not going to be able to get out of it what you're looking for.
You've got it. In anything we do in life.
Truth.
And I know we have, beyond just the mentoring and executive coaching program that Steve's doing, and they can find more information at the new website, massp.com. I know Steve's in charge of the adaptive school seminars. He does a lot of our online facilitation for some of our online courses in our digital learning network. So I know we've got a few new principals that are signed up for an observation and feedback course, trying to learn strategies for, regardless of what framework or rubric tool you're using, how to go through that process and make it most effective for not only you, but the teachers. And I know I've seen it in my area over on the east side, there are certain ISDs that put on training for new teachers as well as new administrators. So if people are willing, like you said, Theresa, to be vulnerable and look for it and be willing to grow, there are a lot of different PD opportunities out there.
Makes me think of that quote, you don't have to be bad to get better.
Yeah, that's great.
Read, research, try, and talk it out.
I'm getting that on a t-shirt.
I was going to say, yes.
It's complex work.
That's my word. That's going to be my word for the year. Can my word be a phrase? Is that a thing?
It works.
That's right. So, I love it. So, how are the cohorts going?
The cohorts are going great. We had our first cohort go through this summer for the mentoring of administrators, and they are on path to having great success. We check in on a monthly basis with their goal setting. It's a certification process as well, so we're not just training these people as mentors and throwing them out there. There's a certification that MASSP has with it, and then they check in with myself on a regular basis to ensure their goals are met and their mentees' goals are met. We also have another one coming up in February for teachers. So teachers as mentors, because just like as administrators need mentors, teachers do. And this one is designed for teachers to support each other through the teaching practice. Also administrators, if they wanted to come, it's about administrators supporting teachers in their quest using data-based or strategy-based data conversations and coaching conversations. So we're not just sitting and complaining. We're always saying, here's what we need to do, and then how do we work together to make that happen? So those are some other options that are out there.
All right.
Well, I think that is going to...
Yeah.
Do you have any more questions for him, Theresa? I was going to say...
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered all of it. Steve, is there anything you think we missed? Anything we should have asked?
No, I think you've got it. The biggest thing that I also need to be reminded of, and this is personal, is bring humor into the situation. Know your people, know what they need, and then bring humor into it. Too often we get so caught in the weeds that we forget what our essential purpose is in the world of education and in the world of leading. And that's just to inspire thinking and grow a culture of learning. So how do we remember that when we're down in the weeds to pull ourselves back up to what's our overall vision for what we want to do when we're in this leadership position?
That's great advice, Steve. I always said one of the biggest things that always helped me connect with, I always felt like I was pretty good at connecting with people, even as a teacher, was humor and humility. I said, those two things get you more credibility, I feel like, than just about anything else. So I'm glad knowing that somebody much smarter than me said that. So I feel like I was on the right path.
Ryan, I'm as smart as I am because I hang around with people like you and Theresa.
There you go. There you go. Nice. Well, that's a good spot to end, I think, for this podcast episode. I want to thank everybody for listening to the MASSP podcast. Remember, you can find all of our podcasts. We are rocking and rolling into season 3 right now on the new MASSP website. If you haven't checked it out, that is massp.com. Not only can you find out all of the great things going on with PD that Steve is leading with the coaching and mentoring and adaptive schools, but all the other different conferences, trainings we put on, field work, including these podcasts as well. So the only other thing we have really coming up I want to mention is the AP and Deans Conference, which is going to be at the end of January 28th, over in Crystal Mountain, which is a very cool time of the year to be there. So they can learn a lot of great things and have a little fun while they're there outside. So again, check out the new website. Hopefully we'll see people at the AP and Deans Conference. And again, thanks for joining me, Theresa and Steve. Teresa's going to be taking over some more of these in the next couple of weeks and months. So stay tuned for more, and thanks for listening.